Some objects carry more than just history. They carry regret, fear, and sometimes something that won't leave when you ask it to. I used to work in hotel maintenance, one of those low-budget chains off the highway, the kind with a flickering sign and an ice machine that never works. Most of the staff quit before hitting their third week, but I stuck around long enough to hear the stories. One day, the manager told me to clean out room 209. He said it had been sealed off for months after a guest trashed it. When I asked why they hadn't just fixed it sooner, he looked at me like I'd asked the wrong question. Everything inside felt wrong. Not messy, just off, like someone had tried too hard to erase whatever happened there. The walls had fresh paint, but you could still see faint discoloration underneath, like something had bled through. The bed was stripped bare. There was no art on the walls, just that mirror. It stood in the corner like it had always been there. It wasn't the kind of mirror you'd expect in a budget motel. It had a thick, ornate frame, the glass aged with that cloudy patina around the edges, the kind of thing you'd see at an estate sale next to a broken grandfather clock. I walked past it quickly, not sure why, but I didn't want to see my reflection in it. I lifted the mirror, heavy as hell, and wrestled it into a dolly cart. As soon as I set it down outside the room, I heard a sharp thud from inside, like something had dropped, but it was deeper than that, like a knock from inside the wall. I spun around, but there was nobody in the hallway. There were no carts, and there were no voices. I looked at the mirror. It had shifted slightly, not much, maybe a few inches, but enough that I was positive it hadn't been angled like that when I left it. I told myself the cart must have rolled, but the wheels were locked, and the hall was level. A few days later, one of the housekeepers, Anna, spotted the mirror where I'd stashed it in the back hall. She said it was beautiful, that it reminded her of her grandmother's house in Mexico. I told her it came from room 209. Her smile dropped a little, then came back. That room's cursed, she said, half joking, but maybe the mirror just wants a home. I helped her carry it to her car. It was already getting dark, and the whole time we moved it, I felt like we were being watched. Not from the motel, from the mirror itself. When we loaded it in and shut the trunk, she said thank you, and gave me this little nod like we'd done something important, or something irreversible. She didn't come into work the next day, or the next. When I finally texted her, all she said was, "You knew." I've never seen her since. Her phone's been disconnected. I called in sick the following week. When I came back, room 209 was sealed again, the door bolted from the inside. The manager never spoke of it, and the mirror, still gone. But I heard from someone that it showed up in an estate sale 3 towns over. I bought the house off a foreclosure listing. It looked fine in the pictures, a little weathered, but solid bones. I was looking for a project, something quiet to work on, somewhere off the grid. But when I first stepped inside, the air was stale. Not moldy, just still, like the house had been holding its breath. I should have taken the basement smell as a warning. I found it while cleaning out the attic, behind a false panel, leaning against the insulation like someone meant to hide it and forgot. It was a painting, oil on canvas, big and way too old to be up there in that heat. The image was strange. A figure standing in a field, face mostly obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. The frame was warped from moisture and the paint was cracked, but the canvas was still intact. Something about it felt wrong, like it was facing the wrong way, even when it wasn't. I should have left it there, but I didn't. I brought it downstairs and hung it in the living room. It seemed like a good placeholder until I found something better. The moment I did, the house got colder, like noticeably. I checked the thermostat, but it was still normal. But I had to start wearing socks and a hoodie just to sit on the couch. Then the floorboards near the fireplace started creaking when no one was walking on them. Over the next 2 weeks, the walls started to peel, but only in the living room. I repainted them, but the paint bubbled within days. The floor under the painting began to bow slightly, like the foundation was sinking. I had contractors come check the joist, but there was no water damage, no mold, nothing measurable. But the air near that wall started smelling faintly metallic, like rusted iron. And the painting, the shadows in it were darker than I remembered. One night, while watching TV, I glanced over and felt the painting watching me back. The figure seemed closer to the front of the canvas. Then the power flickered, once, then again. The TV screen filled with static for a moment and then snapped back. But behind the reflection in the glass, I swear I saw the hat, the silhouette from the painting, not in the image, behind me. I turned around. There was nothing there, but the painting was now tilted, like it had shifted on its own. I started hearing things at night, light creaks at first, then louder, dragging sounds from the living room. Once, I came down at 3 a.m., and the painting was on the floor, propped perfectly upright like it had been placed there, facing the hallway. The dog refused to go near that side of the house. He'd bark at the wall for minutes and then whimper and hide behind the stairs. Eventually, he stopped going in the living room entirely. I developed nosebleeds, random, unexplained, and always when I was in the living room. My nails started turning slightly gray. I couldn't sleep more than a couple hours a night. Every time I passed the painting, my ears would ring, a low buzzing tone that would last a few seconds and then vanish. My phone's compass began spinning every time I stood in front of the canvas. I tried to sell it, but there were no takers. I tried to burn it, but it wouldn't ignite. I left it out in the trash, and the next morning it was back on the porch like someone had placed it there gently. I finally drove it 60 miles out and dumped it behind a boarded-up church. I didn't even look back. But my phone glitched the entire way home. No GPS and no signal. And when I got back, my house still smelled like iron. The house hasn't decayed any further. The paint is holding, and the air feels lighter, but I still don't go into the living room at night. Sometimes, out of the corner of my eye, I swear I see the figure again. Not on a wall, not in a frame, just standing. And I still get those nosebleeds, but only when it rains. The toy was at the bottom of a dusty cardboard box, an old plastic bear, beige with faded red overalls and black button eyes. It looked melted in places, like it had been left near a heater for too long. The woman running the garage sale said it belonged to her nephew. She paused and then added, "He's better now." I should have asked what she meant. I bought it for $1. I put it on a shelf in the spare room, just something odd to decorate the space. The next morning it was on the floor facing the wall. I figured it fell, so I put it back. That night I woke up to a faint scraping sound. When I checked, the toy was sitting in the hallway, legs crossed, back straight, facing my bedroom door. I started taking photos with my phone every night before bed, just to be sure I wasn't imagining it. In the morning, it was always in a different spot, in front of the bathroom mirror, sitting on the stairs, one time halfway inside an open kitchen cabinet. But in one of the photos, I noticed something worse. The eyes were different. The left button was now completely blacked out, like it had been burned. I locked it in the storage closet. I shut the door and propped a chair in front of it. At around 4 a.m. I woke up again. This time the sound was more like dragging, long drawn-out scratches across wood. The closet door was wide open. The bear was gone. I found it in the living room, standing on the coffee table, with its arms at its sides. I tried replacing it. I bought another bear, nearly identical, and swapped them. The new one never moved. It stayed exactly where I left it. But the original? I started finding both, one on the shelf, the other in the hallway. Sometimes I'd wake up to find them side by side, turned slightly inward like they were whispering to each other. I set up a motion camera in the hallway. The footage showed nothing for hours, but then sometime, after midnight, the bear wasn't there. One frame later, it was back, but now facing the wall. Then it started twitching, slight jerks of its head and limbs, too fast and too sharp to be accidental. The camera cut out at 3:17 a.m. I wrapped the bear in canvas and stuffed it in a wooden crate and sealed it in the attic. I even nailed the hatch shut. I thought I was done with it, but I started hearing footsteps overhead, slow and deliberate, sometimes in the middle of the day. And then once, during a storm, something started knocking from above. 4 times. Pause. 4 more. One night I passed a hallway mirror and caught a glimpse of something. I turned, thinking it was behind me. Nothing. But in the reflection I could still see it. The bear, perched on the banister, watching. I whipped around again, and this time it was actually there, but just for a second. The light flickered and it was gone. I finally decided to destroy it. I went back to the attic, but the crate was empty. I searched every inch of the house, but I found nothing. I thought maybe it had finally stopped. Then, last week, I got a package on my porch. No label, no return address, just the bear, sitting inside. Both of its eyes are gone now. I picked up an old wall clock at a quiet estate sale. It looked heavy and vintage, with a thick wooden frame and a dull glass face. No brand and no markings. The seller said it had been sitting untouched for years, but the moment I touched it, the ticking started. Soft and steady, but oddly rhythmic. The clock didn't keep normal time. The hands moved unevenly, sometimes speeding up and sometimes barely moving at all. It never stopped ticking, though, always steady and always there. I tried moving it to different rooms, but it always seemed to find the quietest, darkest corner and tick louder. Being near it made me feel off, like the air was heavier. My head throbbed sometimes, like a dull pressure behind my eyes. At night, the ticking seemed louder, almost echoing, like it filled the whole house. Sometimes I thought I heard whispers just beneath the ticking, but when I listened closely, I didn't hear anything. I set up a camera to catch what was happening around it. The video showed strange shadows flickering around the clock, shifting in impossible ways. The hands didn't move smoothly either. They jumped in sudden, jerky bursts. The light in the room seemed to pulse faintly, in sync with the ticking. I started losing track of time. Sometimes I'd check the clock and realize that hours had passed without me noticing. Other times I'd look away for a moment and the clock hands would be somewhere completely different. Even my phone's clock seemed slower near the clock, like time itself was bending around it. I researched the clock's past, but I found little, just that it had been in the same house for decades. No tragedies or disasters, just odd stories about people hearing ticking in empty rooms, or seeing the clock where it wasn't supposed to be. Nothing concrete, just whispers and uneasy glances. One night, the clock chimed unexpectedly. Not a melody, just a harsh, mechanical clang, over and over. It echoed through the walls, making my chest tighten. Afterward, the ticking stopped for hours. When it started again, it was slower and deeper, like it was marking something important. I noticed a pattern. Every time the clock chimed, something strange happened around the house. Lights would flicker, doors creaked open, or shadows appeared at the edges of my vision. It felt like the clock was signaling. I tried unplugging it. It actually plugs in, which was weird. Moving it far away, even covering it with blankets. Nothing worked. The ticking found its way back into my ears. Once, I left the clock outside overnight, and it was back on the wall when I woke up, still ticking. Some objects don't just collect dust, they collect something far darker. Shadows that cling, time that warps, things that watch when you think you're alone. Whether they whisper, move, or simply wait, they remind us that some things are better left untouched. So the next time you bring something new into your home, pay attention, because you never know what's really coming through the door with it. If you liked this dive into the cursed and the unknown, hit subscribe and stick around. There's always more waiting in the shadows.